Andrew Weibe. Oh, man. Dude, you got some people pissed off about this one. The 10 biggest signings in MLS history, according to MLSsoccer.com's Andrew Weibe. I keep seeing this list all over Twitter, and I figured it'd go away by now, but people are still debating it. Okay, fine. I'll play along. This is the biggest signings in MLS history, according to DannyTRadio. Oh wait, hold on. Before we start, it seems like all the fighting online is because we don't know how to define biggest. What exactly is the criteria? So here's how I did it. It's the biggest name from the American and Canadian perspective. In other words, who had the biggest impact off the field? Who are the highest profile signings in MLS history? Now, as I was finishing up this list, I realized how hard it was to come up with. And you know, when I first saw Andrew Weibe's list, I disagreed with a lot of it, but then when I was making my own list, I found that I kept going back and forth between things, and I found myself justifying a lot of Andrew Weibe's positions. So with all that being said, I'm now realizing that everyone's probably going to disagree with me as well. Now, before we get started, remember, if you're a fan of MLS or just curious to find out more about the league, subscribe for more MLS content. And also, let me know what you want to see a video on in the future. Now, let's do it. 10. Cuauhtemoc Blanco. People in the Fire fan community still romanticize about the Blanco days. Mostly because we, and I'm counting myself in there, haven't really had much to celebrate in the past decade. Now, his signing was a little bit overshadowed by David Beckham in 2007, but make no mistake about it, Blanco was huge in Chicago, especially in the Mexican community. I do think people overestimated his impact on Major League Soccer. Not on the field. I mean, on the field he was crucial for the Fire. But a lot of people like to talk about Toyota Park being sold out every game with him, and that just wasn't the case. I love Blanco. He was awesome. He was one of my all-time favorites. And there was genuine excitement about the signing that I've never seen before with the Fire, and that includes Schweinsteiger. I do think coming over at 34, I believe it was, hurt a little bit. I mean, yeah, this was before the lazy critics gave MLS the retirement league stigma, but it looked like Blanco's World Cup career was over when he didn't make the 06 squad. And I know he did make the 2010 squad, but I think this signing would have been considerably bigger if he had signed 2 to 3 years earlier, as would a lot of these selections on this list. Now, I should note that Blanco barely made the list, because I really struggled on whether to include him, or Rafa Marquez, or Frank Lampard, or Carlos Valderrama. Please don't turn off the video because I didn't include LPB. I still love him. 9. David Villa. Oof, I can't believe David Villa didn't make the original list. World Cup champion, Silver Shoe winner, dude scored 5 goals for Spain in the 2010 World Cup. On a Spain team that had one of the most dominant runs in international soccer ever and who was loaded with huge, high-profile names, maybe no one was bigger than David Villa. And I know, it was 4 years after that World Cup when he actually signed, but even still, Villa was the man, and he was still massive. And he was NYCFC's first ever signing. I mean, talk about making a splash for the expansion side. Instantly sparked a debate on which New York team was going to be bigger. Red Bulls or City? Come on, Andrew Weibe. Villa's gotta be on the list. Oh boy, I'm gonna piss off a lot of people with these next two for how low they are on the list, but I'll just come right out and say it. 8. Thierry Henry. Yeah, I got him down at number 8. He might have the most successful career of anyone on this list. He has all the accolades, and I know he was a World Cup champion. I know he was an Arsenal legend. I know he played for Barcelona, and I know after Beckham, he was the next big, are you serious, signing of MLS. The reason I have him so low on this list is because I'm trying to look at this through the American and Canadian perspective. And when I do that, I just think there are 7 names on this list that are bigger than him. And I respect the hell out of Henry, but does someone who doesn't follow soccer, are they going to know the name Thierry Henry? I think that has to factor into this. As iconic as he is, I just think there are other names that are more recognizable than Thierry Henry. 7. Kaka. I really struggled with the ordering on this one. I went back and forth on who I wanted higher, Kaka or Thierry Henry, and ultimately, I had to give the edge to Kaka. It's primarily because at this time, most of the big signings in MLS all came from Europe or Mexico. It had been a long time since someone of this magnitude came from South America. I know, there was Valderrama, but he came over in the beginning of the league when it had half as many teams and way less than half as many fans. And just the fact that it's a Ballon d'Or winner coming over to play in MLS, I mean, just the third one to do so, that's big time. Kaka was Orlando City in their first year. I guarantee you, Orlando didn't fill the bowl to see Eric Avila. No offense, Eric. I actually really liked you as a player. But they came to see Kaka. 6. Clint Dempsey. Deuce had just signed a 3-year deal to Tottenham in August 2012 to become the highest salary U.S. player of all time. His first ever goal for Tottenham, a game winner against Manchester United. Clint Dempsey was doing big things in Europe. And then less than a year later, he leaves Tottenham to join the Seattle Sounders. Like, I put this on par with David Beckham as the most shocking signing in MLS history. I was convinced that Clint Dempsey was going to spend the rest of his career in Europe. Okay, from a world's perspective, I don't think anyone really cared that Dempsey went to MLS, but for Americans, this was unreal. He was probably the second most recognizable face of U.S. soccer after Landon Donovan, and to see him come back to MLS when he did, as in not just in the twilight of his career, it signaled a shift that Major League Soccer can be a destination for your career. Now, while Europe is definitely where the top competition is, no one is arguing that, but it signaled that MLS is not just some recreational league. Now, there have been other U.S. men's national team players to follow this move into MLS, like Howard and Bradley and Guzan and Altidore, but Clint Dempsey was the biggest name, and I also think he was the one that started this big movement back into MLS. 5. Wayne Rooney. Okay, hear me out. The reason I have Rooney over a guy like Thierry Henry is because of the name recognition. In my eyes, Henry had the better career, and Henry is probably a bigger name in the eyes of the rest of the world. But for some reason, over here in North America, people just love Wayne Rooney. Okay, this is probably really stupid on my part, but maybe it's just the fact that Wayne Rooney has 17 million Twitter followers to Thierry Henry's 2 million Twitter followers. And I know Henry doesn't go on Twitter as much as Wayne Rooney, but even so, that is quite a big gap to make up. And yes, while Kaka and Clint Dempsey are huge, ultimately I put Wayne Rooney at number 5 because, well, my mom is more likely to recognize him. 4. Javier Chicharito Hernandez. Finally. I don't know how many years we've been waiting for this one. I gotta be honest, after Chicharito didn't sign with LAFC back in 2018, I really didn't think this was ever gonna happen, but it finally did. And I underestimated the reaction from the signing. I didn't realize it would be this huge. And then when I saw the numbers, I started to understand why. I mean, in the United States alone, Liga MX nearly doubles the TV viewership of EPL and nearly triples the TV viewership of MLS. It's actually kind of embarrassing. And out of sheer curiosity alone, people are going to be tuning into LA Galaxy matches just to see Chicharito. At least in the beginning, stadiums both home and away are going to be filled just to watch Chicharito. And yes, Giovanni Dos Santos, he was big, but Chicharito is on a whole new level. 3. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Now maybe I'm breaking the rules here, but if we just take Zlatan's name with nothing else attached to it, he probably only lands like 5 or 6 on this list. It's what he did after he was signed that gets him up to number 3. And I'm not even talking about what he did on the field. Zlatan might be a legend on the field, but for how good he is, he's an even better self-promoter. I mean, taking a whole page out of the LA Times just to say you're welcome, my God. All the appearances on American sports talk shows, it actually had people talking about soccer in this country. I have friends that have zero interest in soccer, don't pay attention at all, and yet they were coming up to me and asking me about Zlatan. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a marketing genius, and while I didn't agree or didn't like everything he said or did, you can't argue the facts. Zlatan was incredible for MLS. 2. It's Freddy Adu. Okay. His career has kind of become a punchline. I get that. And if he were to sign today, it wouldn't have made the list. And him signing in 2011 with the Philadelphia Union, that doesn't make the list. But do we remember the circus show that was 2004 when he signed with DC United as a 14-year-old? He was 14 years old. He was going to be a professional athlete in a team sport. A news story that has never happened in this country before or since Freddy Adu. And he was easily the biggest star in this league. And when I say star, I don't mean on the field. I mean off the field. Freddy Adu was the face of Major League Soccer. Remember the Sierra Mist commercial with Pele? Yeah, Freddy Adu was in a commercial with freaking Pele.
When things get hot, Sierra Mist. Taste one shockingly refreshing lemon lime. What are you doing?
We're okay.
There was no bigger story in MLS up to this point. Not even close. And even though he's played in 100 countries since, and he hasn't become the U.S. men's national team superstar like MLS so badly hoped, in the 25 years that this league has been around, there's honestly never been as much hype as Freddy Adu. Well, okay, except for the number one guy. Number one, we should all know who it is David Beckham. And anyone that argues this, they're wrong. They're wrong. It's David Beckham. He's number one. It's the DP that started this all. Even if a player of his caliber wanted to come to MLS, they couldn't because their salary alone would break the salary cap. No, they had to create a special rule dubbed the Beckham rule just to be able to get David Beckham to play in MLS. And thank God they did, because MLS is so much better off because of it. Why did he even want to come to LA? Like, I still don't even understand why. Because he wanted to be a trailblazer? Like, okay, sure. Let's go with that. Fine by me. Major League Soccer is still trying to gain respect from the rest of the world and from those critics within its countries. And whether people realize it or not, this was the first step in doing just that. David Beckham opened the floodgates for all the other DPs to come over. Now, I said it before, I'll say it again. We want more Almirons, less Lampards. I get that. But let's not completely dismiss the importance of the star designated player, even if he is a little above the age of 30. David Beckham was the first to do it, and David Beckham is the biggest signing in MLS. All right, there it is. 10 biggest signings of MLS according to DannyTRadio. Again, let me know what you think. Let me know what your top 10 is. And thank you for watching.